resource depletion or anything else that has these sort of negative outcomes from a fictional point of view. From the player point of view, that should be like rock and roll. Yes. I mean, when I played Champions way back when, there was stun damage and body damage. There was no penalty to the character for body damage. But players routinely accepted limitations on their characters' movements and capabilities, imposed them on themselves when they took body damage. They would say, oh man, my leg, it's like, I'm limping. And, and say, look, I can't, I'm just playing it from now on. I'm having my character's movement because their legs hurt. Mm-hmm. You narrated that as hurting my leg, it's body damage. I'm at half movement. I just am. And you're kind of like, that's not in the book. And they're like, it is now. It's in our book. For my guy at this moment. And they would do that. Another thing that showed up in Champions a lot, there's something called an ego roll. And there's nothing in the book that said your character's choice of behavior is contingent on the ego roll. But players would impose it on themselves. Right? Your character's secret has a secret identity and everyone thinks that the guy is dead, but the family is still alive. And, you have the little son, run across the park and, the character's like hiding behind a tree watching his kid because he loves him so much. And then the player says, shit, I got to make an ego roll or I'm going to go hug him. And the GM's like, A, I didn't call for that. B, it's not even in the book. It's up to you whether you want to go hug your kid. That's the book. And the player says, give me the dice. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that, again, what we think of as negative mechanics, things that deplete resources, especially harshly, right? Really, like there's a chance that you're going to really take a hit this time. In the context of playing the way we're talking about, players will happily celebrate what we think of as punishment mechanics, or would be, in a Skinnerian sense, be punishment mechanics. They will celebrate them, and if they don't have them, they'll self-impose them. And it's not because they're glorious, experienced role players or anything like that. This is a form of engagement you see all the time. If they like the way that the game will go, they trust the system to do the things. They look forward to the next havoc. They look forward to what ability their friend is going to get next. Mm-hmm. Right? And it seems to me as though that's what you're aiming for in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only way you're going to get that is with clean mechanics. Things that have consequences from doing this, and they just do. So the mechanics aren't redundant, they're not tangled up, and you also have kind of a bank of what your character can do, even if it's not optimal. I mean, all your cool shit gets exhausted, but the basics are there. The basics are solid. Mm-hmm. Your character isn't going to, forget how to make a deal at a basic level. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can't make their Master of 100 Houses deal, which is awesome. They can't do that repeatedly. Mm-hmm. But they can do the basics. They get the merchant, no problem. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, that's kind of where I'm going with that. It seems to me that if you blowtorched it this way, mm-hmm. you could end up with a pretty mighty engine of dark fantasy here.
Okay, well, I hope so. That's the goal,
right? But at the moment, you've got it's like it's on blocks and the weeds are growing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I'm also trying to kind of overcome. Okay, You know that player you talked about, or the players you talked about, who the second you hand them the path and concession choice, they're like, fuck that, that's your job. I hate that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, there's two things. One, if the choices that I've just talked about, if the kind of design aesthetic I've just talked about is in place, I think you'd see a lot less of that rejection, first of all. That their so-called principled objection to it is kind of a flim-flam.
Okay.
Maybe not for everybody, but a lot of people who say they hate that kind of thing, you'll find they don't hate it that much, after all. Number two, it is also possible, and maybe you'll hear this in our session, that the path concession choice was seeded with a little bit of imagined play, right? They were
with a what?
With some actual play before the choice. That there really is a bit of play, a bit of things being perceived, a little bit of fictional context for that choice to be made. Rather than say, okay, full stop, we're in abstract land, I've got some paths and concessions in mind, pick one. So does that make sense? There's now, I personally think that that's a dial to be adjusted in play, so that I would at least like the option as a GM, as a Doomsmith, of saying, okay, this time it's full abstract. You're just picking it in a void. Other times, we're going to play for a little bit, and right when the point comes where I'm about to say to the player, what do you do? I can say, by the way, this is a path and concession thing. Here's the path I have in mind. Right. Here's the concession I have in mind. And your character is in motion. We already know where they are and what they're doing and what they're seeing. So you see what I mean about that as a dial in play itself?
Yeah.
A lot of people
typically...
A lot of
That's
people...
typically how it's played.
Right, but a lot of people have very strict personal standards for where they want that dial set.
I see, yeah.
Right? So if you allow that dial to be adjusted in use, then you're also going to overcome a whole lot of that resistance from a lot of players. They just want to feel grounded in their players seeing things and doing things. As long as that grounding is there, then making that choice, the abstraction of the choice to them isn't abstract anymore, and that's okay. So those are just some of my thoughts from the session anyway. Things got pretty gaudy. I had they got to deal with a rogue shaman who had been terribly darkened and was sacrificing people and stuff like that in these ruins. There was a lot of pretty bold character play that I thought was pretty cool. The shaman came back to being a shaman again. The player character, the burned man actually did the thing. He did sphinxing, which put him into contact with I'd already established that there was this totemic object that they were seeking, that the one character was seeking. And she had rolled the chunk of a falling star. So he said, oh, this is a chunk of the thing that the totemic object is made of, in the legends of your tribe. So you'll hear it in the session, but effectively it all came together so that the burned man sphinxed the ancient, ancestress spirit of the tribe. And then that got turned into, a way to combat the shaman, the evil shaman. Anyway, it all kind of came together in a way that felt pretty spontaneous, but let me know that you've usually got enough going on in any situation for a whole bunch of abilities to have emergent properties with each other, which was really good. So I just wanted to point out that there were aspects of the ways that the abilities worked that permitted a unique experience, largely engineered by the players, by their own tactics, for the thing to reach a very climactic conclusion. So, yeah. So I think you'll like that part. That I didn't front load how to solve the problem and then make the players guess until they figured it out, right? Yeah. So that didn't happen and wasn't necessary. And so that was a really good, clean win for that aspect of the game.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with the game. It definitely is. I mean, I really think you should go back through it instead of adding things, but instead to sand and like tighten them, tighten them together, make this connect with that, make that connect with this. I think you're kind of in the opposite situation. I think you need to disentangle things and then sandblast the redundant parts off. So that the dynamics that you show me in that diagram will actually work as their own arrows.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's
well, I mean, that's that's what I will begin to do.
Yeah,
I'll begin looking. I took a lot of notes, and I'm always playtesting myself. So I think it'll be good to kind of hear and to see how you guys did it, and I'll have the notes here, so I'll kind of be watching over it as I go.
Yeah. Now there's two. There's a factor which is going to be really hard to disentangle. Speaking of disentangling, and that's our interactions with text. Sometimes we just misunderstand something, and I realized it later while editing. Sometimes there's probably things I didn't even know that I think we did right and we didn't, that you'll spot. You got to let that go, because that's not what you're critiquing right now. That's right. Not what you're critiquing. You're critiquing function, not reading comprehension. And one of the things that makes your manuscript a little hard to deal with is that you're in the mode of trying to present it at the same time as you're trying to design it. And I suggest let the presentation go for now. Let the manuscript you're working on be for you only, not for other people. And that way you can really concentrate it as a functional phenomenon rather than on product to be read and pedagogy to be experienced. Like we talked about before. Let that be later. Write that text later. Let the pedagogical aspect of this, which also is promotion, right? You got to get people excited. They got to want to do it. And then you have to have teaching steps that actually let them do it. That is a deep and difficult job of its own. And it's not the same job as do these mechanics work at the table with people who are being properly instructed in their use. Or people who know their use or are familiar with them. You got to make sure it works there. If you don't have that, then all the effort down the road that I'm talking about is wasted.
Okay.
What's the point of having glorious art, glorious layout, readable font, nice shiny cover, and very inspirational, exciting text? What's the point of all that if the game doesn't work?
Right.
For a lot of people, that is enough, because the point was to get the sale made.
Yeah.
Pretty sure you're not that guy.
No, I'm not.
That's why I figured out that early on and said, okay, I'll consult. When somebody comes to me and says, or becomes evident that really what they want is to have, a salable object and be done, it's kind of like, look, there's lots of ways to do that. I'm not that consultant. So, so anyway, that's kind of where we're at. Kind of excited by the whole thing. Have a good time.
Well, thanks. Yeah, you too. And I really appreciate all the help.
It's been fun, and stay in touch in general. Please feel free to post at Adepts Play, because that's kind of the best place for dialogue about it. And I'll be posting about this session then, I think, and we can carry on. And dialogue from there is not paid. Dialogue from there is just dialogue. You've kind of already bought into that. So anything else? If you want to play, just play. I mean, include me in a game sometime. Let me know if it's by screen, because That's not a paid thing. I'll just do that for fun.
Okay, great. Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool.
See you later.
All right, see you, man.